Welcome back, my friends, for another episode of the Shema podcast. I have an episode lined up for you that I think you will find, matter of fact, I know you will find very inspiring. You know, this audience is sort of broken into two groups. I have many of you who are like me, who grew up in a very secular world, are just beginning to wake up, see the truth of Torah, and pursue living a Torah lifestyle. And I have many of you who are FFBs from birth. But there's one thing that we all have in common, and that is we're always faced with a new challenge in front of us. Or like the way I like to frame it more productively is Hashem is creating new learning curriculum for each of us. And we're always focused on learning and growing from the challenge in front of us, knowing good and well that there's another one, another challenge, another set of learning curriculum right around the corner. So we're trudging it out day in and day out, always knowing there's another challenge in front of us. So that is something we all have in common. But I want to share something with you that I think look at this a different way, to sort of step back from just looking out 30 days, 60 days, 1 year, and thinking out what we're doing at 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. You know, before I moved to this community, there was some people I knew that I had so much reverence for. It was Rabbi Meir Granitsky and the Rabbi Yissachar Granitsky. The Rabbi Yissachar Granitsky led the Partners in Torah at Torch, and Rabbi Meir Granitsky was there all the time. He's a scribe. He would write my mezuzahs for us. I mean, he was someone I had such a tremendous amount of respect for and do to this day. But when I moved the community, there was a lot more Granitskys. And I sort of knew how to spot them out. Like if I saw someone davening more passionately or at Simchas Torah just having more excitement, I just sort of knew that's a Granitsky. There's something about them. Even when my friends at Simchas Torah said to me, like, the Granitskys are operating on a different, higher spiritual level. And I said, yes, absolutely. And I shared with him, I said, you know, on my 53rd birthday, which is on the 17th at Tammuz, which is in mid-July this year, I look at that as I'm turning 13, because I sort of woke up to the truth that there is a God. I started asking myself, is there any logical proofs for Torah? I discerned that was the case. That all started happening at the age of 40. So I see my 53rd birthday as I'm turning 13. And I'm having Rabbi Abrams work with me to make sure that I know Hebrew and I know the comprehension. I know the Siddur well enough that I want to be a chazan on my 13th birthday. And my role model for that is Rabbi Granitsky's son, who just had a bar mitzvah earlier this year. I'm looking at this 13-year-old kid like, I want to daven like him. And he's so refined with his character and his qualities. It's almost like I have this 13-year-old kid who I'm looking up to as my role model. So that's this family. They're on such a prestigious level. And I would have thought to myself for sure, like, this family's direct descendants from Moshe Rabbeinu. I mean, how could you get to such a high level without coming from just generation of people like this? And yesterday, Rabbi Meir Granitsky introduced me to his father. And this is what blew me away, is a friend of mine told me that he was a convert. And just the idea just hit me like a ton of bricks. You know, he started off at ground zero and now is a rabbi and the patriarch of this amazing family. And you know, I was thinking today that a term that comes up in the investment industry is this idea of multi-generational wealth. Everyone's pursuing it. What I'm here to tell you is that when you stop and think about it, what we are doing by learning and growing every day is we are building multi-generational wealth, the true wealth, not like what a lot of the secular world is pursuing. So I asked Rabbi Yissachar Granitsky, Rabbi Meir Granitsky's father, to join us because he has, in fact, done this. He has built multi-generational wealth. And I wanted him to come on and share his story with us and show us exactly how to do this. I thought it would be inspirational for us because sometimes we need to look out, look long term, and think what it is we are accomplishing in the long term that's going to fuel our energy on the day-to-day, month-to-month activities and pursuits that we do as Jews.
Welcome to the Shema podcast, the podcast for the perplexed. where Torah insights, intertwined through personal stories, as well as interviews with leading Torah scholars, demonstrate the empowering qualities of Torah and mitzvot. For more great Torah learning through Torch, the Torah Outreach Center of Houston, go to torchweb.org. Now to the show.
So, Rabbi Granitsky, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and speaking with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. And if we could just start by you sort of going back to the beginning, like what led you in your early years, finally led you to want to convert to be a Jew?
I wasn't looking at Judaism or Jew or anything for any answers for anything. I left the States in 1970. Towards the end of the Vietnam War, and it was a draft. I stayed in college as long as I could, finished college, and once I lost my deferment, so I was up for the draft. So at first, I didn't want to go in, didn't want to die in the jungles, and I thought about conscientious objection, and I tried to do that. And if you're a conscientious objector, they give you this form to write. What do you believe? Right.
Right.
The only thing I could think about, the only thing I could thought about was, listen, I don't want to kill anybody. I know I'm a pacifist. I didn't want to kill anybody, but religiously I didn't have any, there was nothing religious involved with it. Just that I just didn't want to. I didn't want to get killed. I didn't want to die in the jungle. Anyway, so
right.
I thought first I'll refuse induction. Conscious objection was not an option. I couldn't fill out the push-it form. So I figured, I'll go, so I just won't go in. I just won't go in. So the options you had in the time, in the 70s, you can go to jail or you leave the country.
Okay.
So I thought, I'll just go to jail. Just, I'll be a martyr and, go to jail and whatever it is. I finished college. I was working in Boston, and I was hitchhiking home one day on Veterans Day or something. I was trying to make peace with my parents. They were fighting me. My father was fighting me about my position with the Vietnam War. He himself, when he was in college, he had problems in college a little bit, and his father, my grandfather, he sent him around the world for a couple of times as a assistant purser on a ship. And he went around the world a few times, and it's a long story, He always told me, the United States is the best country in the world, and you owe it to the country to do your service, the Army.
Right.
And I said, okay, I agree with that. And he says, so when I graduated from college, he gave me $1,000, and he said, listen, take this $1,000 and go see if what I'm telling you, go to Europe, and go see if what I'm telling you is true. If what I had hasn't, makes any sense to you. I got the draft in my head. And I wasn't thinking of going anywhere because I was going to do this martyr thing, going to jail.
Right.
Anyways, I was hitchhiking. So I was trying to make peace with him, my father. And in the end, so I was hitchhiking home this time on Veterans Day. I got time off from work. I was working in Boston, and I was hitchhiking on this entrance to the highway. I walked down on the entrance, and the state police came by. The state says, "Listen, you can't hitchhike on the entrance. You have to go up to the top at the top of the road there and hitchhike there because people don't stop on the road going into the highway." So
right.
So I said okay. So I started to walk back. I had my sign, where I was going, and a car stops to me. He says, "Hey, you want to go? Need a ride?" So I said, "Yeah, I need a ride." I wasn't hitchhiking. I was just walking back, but they saw that I was obviously trying to hitchhike. So the police hadn't left yet. He saw me start to jump into a car.
Right.
Comes over, throws my hands up on the thing on the police car. You know what I mean? Searches me. You're not. I told you not to hitchhike. I said I wasn't hitchhiking. I was just I walked out. The guys stopped. I wasn't hitchhiking. Anyway, he says okay. He arrested me, put me in jail for the night. I said, listen to myself. I'm looking at the minimum punishment for refusing induction is 2 years. I said, I don't know if I can do this for 2 years.
Right. One night was enough.
One night was enough. I went back to my roommate. I told him, I says, Pat, my friend, the old friend I had, we were living together in Boston. I said, and his position was, we're leaving the country. He's leaving the country. He's not going to do anything. He's also against the war. He's leaving the country, and I was going to do jail. Came back. I said, Pat, I'm with you. We're leaving. So I took the $1,000 my father sent me. The guy gave me my graduation present, and I went to Europe, and I spent almost 9 months traveling through Europe and Asia, and my view, my politics did not conform to the reality. I saw that as a pacifist, anarchist, whatever the politics were at the time. I said, it's not a reality. I saw my father was right. I says, it's not reality what I'm doing. I owe the American government my service.
Wow.
So I started going back. So I was in India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Turkey. Anyway, I was on my way back, and I got stuck in Turkey. Almost no money. I had saved up just enough money. I was about 4 months in the East.
Mm-hmm.
I had enough that money just to get into Europe. There's a cholera epidemic in Turkey, and Europe closed the borders, and we were stuck in Istanbul.
Okay.
Couldn't get out of Istanbul. The only way I could get out is by plane or by boat. The idea being that if you had enough money to buy a boat ticket or a plane ticket, then you wouldn't have come from a place where cholera comes from, sewers. We had enough money for the flight. It was like $35 for the flight to get out. And the two cheapest flights were to Munich or to Tel Aviv. So it was already November. If I went to Munich, they were building the Olympic Games at that time in 1970. And with all $15, having traveled through Europe, $15, you have to eat and sleep, find a job, wait to get paid. I said it wasn't really a reality because we were used to sleeping outside. So the other option was Israel. Israel was, part of the political thing. The, military-industrial complex was. They were like a big player in that. And I said, it didn't really politically. I wasn't really looking towards it. But I heard about they have the kibbutzim, and I heard there's work. There's work in Israel. So I figured, look, I'll go south, and I could probably sleep outside. And there's work down in Eilat. And there's always kibbutzim where you just, you work, you don't make any money. I had planned to go back to the States. We did Europe, Asia, and then we're gonna do Africa, and then jump over to South America, work up South America, and go back to the States. And I was going to turn myself in, to the army. I was only about 25 years old. We're in this hostel in the old city of Istanbul. Everybody we're all stuck. We can't get into Europe. Everybody's trying to get into Europe. Nobody has any money. There was an Arab there that he was from the old city of Yerushalayim, and he had a Jordanian passport. So this was after 67. So Jordanian passport. His parents lived in the old city, so he couldn't get to Israel. He doesn't have an Israeli passport. He couldn't. He was stuck in Istanbul.
Right.
Anyway, he was dealing drugs in this little hostel there, trying to sell it because no one had any money. So we smoked up all his dope. And so I talked to him. I says, look, what should I do, Should I go to Europe and take a chance of work there, or should I go to Israel? He said, go to Israel. He says, in Israel, nobody starves. So I packed up and took the plane to Israel and got in Tel Aviv, took El Al, got there, we got it when El Al flew on Shabbos. I got there on Shabbos. We had to get to a youth hostel in Tel Aviv, so I had to take a cab. Just previous to that, Istanbul is the armpit of the world. It's the worst, just terrible midot and just terrible people and just not nice place to be stuck. And I had been traveling through all these Arab countries and India, and just very, very difficult traveling. I got off the plane in Tel Aviv, in Ben Gurion, and the fruit trees, the air was perfumed. And then I got this cab driver, and on the way to the hostel, he's telling Jewish jokes. He's telling me Jewish jokes, right? I said, there's Jewish jokes are different from, they make fun of yourself. They make fun of yourself.
Right.
They're not bad. They're not, they're funny. They make fun of in a nice way.
People convert so they can begin to tell the Jewish jokes.
Yeah, right. And then I was looking out the window of the cab, and I had been coming to these third world countries, and I looked, this is a modern country. What is happening here? I got to the hostel. I hadn't taken a hot shower in 3 or 4 months. They don't have showers in these Turkish baths, and you wash yourself up, but they don't have hot showers. And I had a hot shower. Anyway, and so the Arab in the hostel, so he gave me a watch, a fancy watch, and a letter to take to his mother in the old city. He says, look, when you're going to Israel, go to the old city and give this watch and this letter to my mother. So we were kind of like stuck in the hotel, in this hostel. Our plan was really, we either got to find a kibbutz or go to Eilat. The money was running out. We really didn't want to stay in the kibbutz because you don't make any money, so we're trying to get to Eilat.
Was your friend from the States still with you at this point?
That's what I'm saying. We traveled the whole trip together, right? He eventually joined the Army and ended up as an officer, he's retired in the American Army, Anyway, I'm still in contact with him. Anyway, so I had the watch and the letter. I had to go to the old city. So my friend and I went to the old city. I got the letter. I showed it to the Arab kids. It was all in Arabic. Brought it to the family. And I walked coming to visit this family, and they had a letter. And so there was a little bit of excitement in the family. I got a letter from their son who was, wandering around Europe selling dope. I gave the letter to the mother, and she didn't open the letter. She just took the letter and did like this. She held it to her breast.
Yeah.
And she read the letter and then gave her the watch. And that was it. So I took care of that. In the meantime, we were stuck in a Arab hotel in the old city. So this friend of mine and I were traveling a long time together, known each other a long years. Used to go out with his sister. Is that my wife? It's with this guy, this 24 hours a day. The whole story there. The hard times, very hard times, and the traveling. So we had to stick together. So we got to the hotel in the old city, and we said, whatever money we have left over, let's divide it up. He said, I'll find a kibbutz, and you do what you want to do, and we'll be in touch afterwards. But let's take a break, because it was really the end of the trip, really.
Yeah.
So he went out one morning and he found a kibbutz, and he says, my name is Peter. So he says, Pete, I found a kibbutz, and he told me where it was. So he left, and I was alone in the old city. So I went out the next morning, and tried to find this kibbutz office where you can get onto a kibbutz. To this day, I don't know where the kibbutz office is. But I met three fellow travelers, a girl and two boys. I asked them where the kibbutz office is. They said, well, in Yerushalayim, there's no kibbutz office. You have to go to Tel Aviv. I said, I'm down to my last dollar, She said, listen, come with us. We're going up to Mount Zion, to a yeshiva there. What's a yeshiva? He says, a religious place. There's a rabbi there, a holy man. He said, any problem you have, he'll solve your problem. And you can stay there, sleep and eat for nothing. I said, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I said, I need a place where I can sleep and eat for nothing until I get my trip together. And in terms of meeting the rabbi, I had just come from India. I got these holy men all over India, you know what I mean? Long flowing white robes and, mamashta, the whole story.
Right, you've heard that before.
Yeah, right. So he's a holy man. I said, I said in my head, I'm saying, I'm happy to meet a holy man, a holy Jewish man, whatever. So we go up to Har Zion, go up to Mount Zion. I don't know if the rabbi knew who I was or whatever it is. So he comes blasting out of the door of the study hall, a Brooklyn accent, and asking me if I have any money. Rabbis, they collect money. You have an institution, you're a fundraiser. This rabbi says, I have no money, and I just need a place to stay, figure out what I'm going to do. He says, okay, you can stay for a few days. So I had no money. They got a room with a few other guys, dormitory there. So I got up the next morning, so I had no place to go, right? And this yeshiva was for Bali Tshuvos, and it was all in English. He had various rabbis teaching individually in groups. And I just sat in on the lessons there, and tell you, it just blew my mind. You have so many questions about everything, just putting all this spirituality that you've been hearing about all your life, which that doesn't really connect with you, but they're all good questions.
Right.
Right. And it sort of put everything together. And the more I listened to it, the more I connected to it. I was staying there for a couple of days. One of the rabbis says, "What's your God? What are you looking for? What do you want of life? What's your God?" So immediately it came to mind. I don't know what came to mind exactly, but he said, by us there's one God. There's just one God. There's God. There's one God. There was 2 or 3 days before I got to the yeshiva, talking to Israelis, and also you had to go down to the kotel, right, the holy place. We're sort of like, sort of spiritual seekers, we go to the kotel. It's a wall. what is that?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a wall.
Right. Yeah, without any background information, it wouldn't make any sense.
No, and people are, what's a wall? And yet when you had to go in, they always had a soldier at the entrance to it, coming from the old city, so coming from the shuk. So this guy's sitting there, the soldier talking to me, and he's got an Uzi, and he's talking to me about, he looks at me like, I guess he realized I was like anti-war or whatever it is. I don't know what he thought. But he's just telling me, like, this is, I don't need this gun. I don't need the gun. He's talking to me about his gun and how he's Jewish. And you can starve to death in Times Square.
Right.
Right? Here I'm a non-Jew. I come to Israel, and people are helping me.
Yeah.
They're talking to me like a normal, like they don't know who I am, you know what I mean? They talk nice to me. They don't talk that way in Turkey.
Right.
You know what I mean? Istanbul, they don't talk to you like that, like they care about you. People care about you. I said, what kind of place is this? What kind of nation is this? So I was in the yeshiva for a couple of days, I was trying to extend my stay. So the rabbi's wife, she took care of all the registering students and the money. She ran the office. And so she says to me, listen, she says, this is a Jewish place. You're not Jewish. The only way is you don't have any money, so we'll send a letter to your parents to pay for, if you want to stay, you have to pay tuition. I said, listen, I'm 25 years old, and basically I'll get you through college, but you're on your own,
Right. He wasn't really thinking about paying for you. He wasn't non-Jewish son to go to yeshiva.
Not interested in doing it. It wouldn't be. I says, forget about it. I'm not going to. I'm not going to. You're not going to. When you don't get it, it won't work.
Right.
She says, well, the only way you can stay here is since all the students here are paying students, they pay their tuition. The only way you can stay here is if they agree that a non-Jew can learn in the institution. Then she asked me. She says to me, would you want to be Jew? I was thinking, well, just religious institutions. They're happy to take you in. She says, well, I'm not going to take you in. And she says to me, you want to be Jewish. So I says, I don't know if I want to be Jewish. I don't know. She says, well, go take a walk and come back and tell me if you want to be Jewish. So it was a very, the question, do I want to be Jewish? And this is after I've been sitting and listening to the Yeshurim and talking to guys and just such nice people, after coming from going through Europe and Asia. And I said, do I want to be Jewish? And so I was just thinking, I thought to myself, what am I doing in my life? And I said, okay. I said to myself, okay, I'll give it a try. Right, try. Went back to the Rebbitzin.
Now, did you know at that point that you can't just give it a try? You're in.
It was clear.
But you were drawn by just the friendliness. I was drawn by
learning and just the putting together. Judaism is a system that there's no holes in the system.
Right.
There's halakha of which shoe to tie, you always think about, you have this idea of left and right, and, there are certain ideas that you have, which pant leg did you put in first? There was a story, there was a very famous king in Europe. He was friendly with the Jewish community, and he asked the rabbi, this Shulchan Aruch, this rule of law, what's in it? The rabbi answered the king, and he said, well, it tells you how to live life. It tells you what shoe to put on first, which shoe to tie first. And the king answered him, he says, that's Chachma, that's wisdom. Judaism has the right answer for every move you make in your life.
Yeah.
It's a complete system, and it all works, and it's all integrated, and it's all fits, right? It's crazy. That's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, I went back and I says, okay, I want to be Jewish. So I went back to the rabbi's wife. She says, okay, go to the Ministry of Religion and tell them you want to be Jewish. She gives me where the place is. I'm walking to town. Of course, no one speaks English there, But eventually they understood that I want to be Jewish. And so went to the particular guy, this clerk that, takes care of it. He gave me these forms to fill out, more forms. And it's all in Hebrew. So I didn't know, I knew the word shalom, that's about the only thing I knew. I never heard the word Torah, I looked at this huge library in the yeshiva.
Yeah.
And they had a pretty respectable English library. I never heard of the books. And I was English major in college. I knew libraries, and I couldn't believe that I'd missed it.
Right.
No, really, I missed it. Somehow, I never heard the word Torah. Anyway, so I brought the paper back to the Rebbetzin. I said, I says, that's all in Hebrew, I can't. He says, well, see if you can get one of the guys to help you fill it out. I went around, though. It was technical Hebrew, it's not like simple Hebrew. It's like tentacle, like normal Hebrew, So couldn't fill it out. So, okay, I couldn't fill out the form. And my only last chance was to talk to the rabbi. The rabbi said to the rabbi to get to annul the decree that I got to leave. So he says to me, no, he says, you got to leave. He says, listen, Rabbi, I got hands. I'll work. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do.
Wait, back up. What I thought they were good with you converting.
Yeah, but I had to fill out the form.
And nobody would help you fill out the form.
Nobody filled out the form, and he filled out the form. So, and I was like, stuck. So I couldn't do that step. So anyway, the rabbi's trying to throw me out. He told me, he said, you got to leave. I says, Rabbi, I got hands. I can work. Whatever you want, I'll do anything. He says, no. He says, go to kibbutz. Go to the kibbutz and think about it a little bit more. That's the rule in Judaism, right? You don't take them right away. I met a few friends, and I had no money, but basically I just had, a couple of dollars left. I had sold my blood in Hadassah for $5, and I didn't, they gave enough money, so it was enough money to get to Tel Aviv. They told me where the office is. Went to the office, the kibbutz office in Tel Aviv, and so the woman there, she's telling me, said, well, you want to go? You got a lot of kibbutzim. You have up the north, you got the south, east, west, where you want to go, the desert, mountains, up in the north where it rains a lot. You have a lot of places, hard up in the north. So it was already winter. So I understood, I heard that the work is agricultural work. I told her, I said, I want to go to one of the kibbutz up north where it rains a lot. What was I thinking? Right. If it rains, it's agriculture, it's outside. They can't work in the rain.
Right. Okay.
I said, that's perfect for me, right?
That's very strategic.
Yeah. Well, it rains a lot. So anyway, I got this kibbutz up north. I took the bus, got to the kibbutz. I had 5 agarot in my pocket and a telephone token. I stayed in the kibbutz about a year. A couple of kibbutzim. I worked in a couple of kibbutzim. I read everything I could on Judaism. Everything I could. If the author was Jewish, I'd read this book.
Wow.
Nothing else. Right? I got just reading Jewish. Had to figure out what Zionism is. What is Zionism? I couldn't figure out what never heard of Zionism.
Right.
And then I decided about halfway through before this first kibbutz, they didn't have an ulpan, so I registered for an ulpan to learn Hebrew. I went to change it in the kibbutz. So I figured I'd get the language down. It was a big stumbling block for me. So I went to an ulpan. During the time I was on this ulpan where they teach Hebrew, had a bunch of Americans and learning Hebrew. Somehow I got in there. I don't know how I got in there. The guy that lent me the money, so I was writing him, what I was doing and how I'm still interested in coming to the yeshiva. One of the tiulim we went on to, I came to Yerushalayim. I left the group and I went up to the yeshiva. I talked to my friend. I want to come back. I want to come back to the yeshiva. I want to learn. And on the kibbutz, I got the forms filled out.
Right.
And I registered in Tel Aviv to convert. So I was serious about that. Got that part. At the end of the kibbutz, it was like 6 months or 3 months, or I forget what it was. So just around Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and my friend had talked to the rabbi, and when I came back to the yeshiva, I had made up my mind. I'm not leaving.
Right.
I'm not leaving. I don't care what the Rebbetzin says. I'm not leaving. So, of course, I had to talk to the Rebbetzin. You're not Jewish. You have to do the tuition. And, it's not a free-for-all here. You can't do anything. And so you can't stay. So she saw that she got the message that I was not leaving. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not listening to
it.
Yeah. She says, go talk to the rabbi. So I went to the rabbi. I said, the rabbi, blah, blah, blah. I told my story. He says, okay, you can stay, work 8 hours a day. After do the 8 hours, before, after, whatever it is, when you're not working, you can go to classes and whatever, do what you want to do. Okay? So I got in. And I cleaned the Beis Medrash, and I said it was like, I took care of the dormitories, cleaned dishes, I did the shopping. Anything anybody asked, Yissachar was the answer. did what I could, right? And anyway, eventually I converted and met my wife a few days later, and I got married. And
How long were you there in that yeshiva?
I did a few things, I lived a few places. Was on Mount Zion for about 15 years. Got married, got my Hebrew together, learned shchita, kosher slaughtering. I learned sofrut, writing. I learned circumcision. After I converted, built myself up as much as I could and tried to learn. And it was about 15 years. And after marriage and a few kids, the yeshiva, the rabbi was always looking for a community. When I first got to the yeshiva, it was like 15 guys.
Mm-hmm.
But when I came back after years, about 30 of them. But we all started getting married, having children, and there was no room on Har Zion for all the families. And some of the families there was no room on Har Zion, so the families, rented tried to stay around with the yeshiva community. They lived in the old city of Yerushalayim, very expensive, and the rabbi was always looking for a community. I knew, after Begin got in and they opened up Israel for settlements, which under the labor government didn't happen. And when Begin got in and they were opened up politically,
And what year was this?
I got married in 76. I don't know exactly when Begin got in. It was a few years after that. But anyway, the issue of the settlement works. They need a group. They need a group to start. They can't throw, unknown families together. It's just easier to get a cohesive group, and then they'll place them in these. We got this. It was really an army base in the Judean hills. They're all on very critical sites where you have and the Jews are always in the middle of the Arabs, right? But they're high, and they give cover. That's their security. So anyway, got this one settlement. So I had a few kids already living on Har Zion. I moved around a little bit in Har Zion as my family grew and needed a bigger place. And it was like how many kids can you put into a couple of rooms? It's very difficult. So they opened up the settlement, Meitzad, and I moved to Meitzad. I was there another 15 years. And then I left the community. My kids got a little older, and I decided that, and I was in it's all about Tshuva community, and you got a lot of rock and roll, and you have American culture, that's where we came from, and the music and the culture, and it's about Tshuva. That's what's happening. It's so, and everybody's religious. They're doing the rivers, but it doesn't look religious. It's not black and white,
right?
So. I decided, I'll move to a really religious community. So my wife is related to the Rosh Yeshiva in the south, Rabbi Yissachar Meir, Yeshiva Negev, and we had kesher with him, and we asked, we wanted to move down to his community, so we moved down there. I was there another 15 years. And I started working in shchita and slaughtering, traveling, and working in South America, North America, Europe, Poland, Ireland. And then about 5 years ago, I moved back to the same community, where in the settlement.
Okay.
And that's where I've been since then. There's a lot of stories about in learning, and look, there's no nation like the Jewish nation. Like I say, you can starve to death in Times Square, and no one pay attention to you. Jews, they take care of themselves. As a goy, up till 25 and 26, 27, it's Yom V'Layla. The difference between a goy and a Jew is Yom V'Layla. It's really day and night.
And what your father wanted you to do by traveling around and seeing the compare and contrast of Europe versus the United States?
I wrote him back after I got in the kibbutz. I said, Abba, you're exactly right, and I missed it. Just getting out of the States, out of this one culture,
right,
and going to Europe and traveling through Europe and Asia, I felt like every day it was worth my whole college education.
Sure.
And the way it opened up your mind.
Because now you can see how different cultures, what that looks like living in those environments.
And especially in India, I got to appreciate, as a Christian looking at Ten Commandments and Christianity, and they don't hold that. They don't in India. They don't hold. They're not that. That's not. There's no rules in India. It's like Hindu. They have like it's like it's a more amorphous sort of life. You know, they have a whole system of gods. They got war, and you got a god of war and a god of wealth and a god of this and a god of that, and they got 20 things. And it's like, and I got to appreciate Western Judeo-Christian values that when you're not living it, when you're not living it,
right.
You have no idea what's happening.
You can take things for granted.
You take things for granted, and then it's pulled out, and the rug is pulled out, and there are no rules. Then it's very difficult to
That rebellious anarchy dream is no longer.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't work. You know what I mean? No, there has to be a moral underpinning.
Right. Exactly. Then to see all that, and then see Israel, that was probably a very stark difference, like you said as well, from the United States even. To this day, why did I had a lot waiting for me in the States. You know, I left a lot when I left. You know, I just pulled out and left. You know, my family there, I lived friends and girlfriends and, you know, guys, and, you know, whatever is, you know, a whole life and opportunity. And then I got to Israel and like, I gave it, I just stopped. I just finished. That was it. I just, you know, I wrote my parents and said, I'm staying. This is where I'm staying. My mother says, you know, come home. My father said, listen, you know, got myself together. He said, look, stay in Israel, get citizenship. You're Jewish, whatever it is, you know, you're happy, I'm happy. Beautiful.
Right? There's a lot of stories there. That's basically it.
How many kids and grandkids do you now have?
I have 12 children, and Baruch Hashem got them all married. About over 80 grandchildren.
Amazing. Wow. So I was saying, that's the multi-generational wealth from... Yeah,
I came with it's 5 Aga Road and a telephone token, and that's what I got. And I got, you know... Hashem just opened it up, you know what I mean?
Right.
You know, just follow the rules, and you know, just follow the rules. Not just physically, spiritually, emotionally, and every. Just life is so fulfilling there.
Yeah.
It's a tough place to live. You know what I mean? It's the Wild West. But it's like worth every minute. Worth every minute.
Amazing.
Just so I'm so blessed to you know, Kodesh Baruch Hu. And you were talking about, you know, a multi-generational wealth and things like this. And I was in Israel, and one of the kibbutz girls, when I was in the kibbutz, you know, she took me around. She wanted to show me outside the kibbutz. She's showing me around the little villages that are around in the area of Sfat. And I looked around. I said, this is an ancient land. It doesn't look new. It doesn't. I mean, in the city it looks new.
Yeah.
But you go outside, it has like a history to it. And look, the earliest, you know, buildings in the States, you know, maybe it's like 1700 or something. It's a log cabin.
Right.
You know, I lived in a place on Har Zion, like the stones on the floor are 1,000 years old, 2,000 years old. You know, the floor tiles, you know what I mean? The walls.
Yeah.
You know, there's history, unbelievable history.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure you get a sense that you become part of that fabric of history.
It's a perspective of, you know, in the States you don't get it. You know, you got George Washington. That's about it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But there you got Avram Yissachar and Yaakov. That's where Avram Yissachar and Yaakov walked these places. You know what I mean? David HaMelech. You know, it's just unbelievable. The history gives you such. It grounds you, and to be part of the Jewish nation. You know what I mean? You can't. There's nothing. There's nothing like it. Nothing like it.
Amazing. I'm so appreciative that you shared that story.
And like you said, and like you're saying, you know, I had in my head. I was telling a story about seeing on the course. I said, and you see the Kodesh Baruch Hu. He said, he just picked me up out of the sewer of. I don't want to say bad about, you know, but the sewer of the world, right? And brought me to Eretz Yisrael. He brought me to a yeshiva, went to Torah, built a family, and on the kibbutz, I made up my mind that when I realized sort of the Hashgacha Pratis, the personal intervention of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, of Shema in your life, that I said, I got to teach my kids this. I have to teach my kids this. And I made it a practice in my family in talking, and I had to make it that God runs the world, and you have any problems, you just call him up, and he'll take care of you, and it doesn't matter. Things are bad. Things are not bad. Things are good, and they're hard. Things are not bad.
Right.
And once you get that, and you teach it to your kids, so, I mean, that's what I did. I just pressed it. I tried to speak in spiritual terms to my children, not being crazy about it, but just understand. Look, this is God runs the world. God runs the world, and this is what we do. And then you learn, and you learn from the mitzvahs and the life and the community, like the communities, and in community you have together. You have such this cohesion, and it's good, and everything is good. Why did you move into a religious neighborhood?
I wanted to live and experience
you want to
live as a Jew.
You have to live it without just fulfill it. You can live with a in a non-Jewish neighborhood, but you can't get it.
Right, exactly.
You don't share the values of the neighbors. You're talking to the wall.
Right. Exactly.
They don't know what you're talking about. And your children. What are your children? Who are they talking to?
Ours is a belief system that extends into daily actions and behaviors.
Everywhere.
It just doesn't end with stating a belief system, and that's it.
Everywhere. Yeah. Everywhere. It goes everywhere. And you have to live it, that's what I did. I tried to stay, since in Israel, I mean, that's what I do, I have to be, and also for the family, I have to be a dugma, I can't compromise really, I have to be who I am, and talk to my kids, all my kids, this guy also, you want to get it together, you want to raise a family, you want to, whatever you want to do, you have to do it in a Jewish context. You have to do it, and in terms of every aspect of your life, right? You have to live in Israel because it's everywhere. Everybody's Jewish.
Yeah,
everybody's Jewish. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter who, what their level is, but they know what you're talking about, right?
Right, exactly.
Even the ones that are anti-religious, they know what religion is.
They may not agree, but they know what you're talking about.
But they know what you're talking about. No, and it opens up worlds.
Yeah.
Open up worlds. You can talk to a totally non-religious person in Israel, and relate to him as your brother. That's all you need. And it's funny, but also the Arabs are the same way. I was living on Har Zion, and I had to go to a pharmacy. Closest pharmacy was in the Arab shuk in the old city. Mm-hmm. Because it's right next door. We used to do all our shopping and everything there. Went to a pharmacy. So I'm looking for the pharmacy, and this Arab, guy is giving me a hard time, just giving me a terrible hard time in front of this pharmacy. Just not nice. You know what I mean? I says, listen. I said, Ishmael and Yitzhak were brothers. I says, we are brothers, I said to the Arab.
Uh-huh.
Right? And he heard it. He says, you're right.
Beautiful.
Right?
Yes.
And if you relate to them, because they know basically what you're talking about.
Right, exactly. There's no denial. They know the common...
Yeah, we got blood brothers. We got blood brothers. They're blood brothers.
First
right?
cousins.
Yeah, but by the non-Jew, they don't have. They don't have that kesher there exactly.
Yeah, they don't recognize it. They don't really believe that to be true necessarily.
Yeah, right. But the Arabs, they understand the thing. But there's different differences.
That's amazing. I'll just sort of wrap up by saying, there's this whole idea that there are souls that came in this world destined to become Jews. The ones that wanted the Torah when the Torah was given to the Jewish people at Mount Sinai, and you just look at how God orchestrates events to bring them back in.
Look, everything's a tikkun. Everything is a tikkun.
Exactly.
Everything's a tikkun. Everything's a tikkun.
Absolutely.
You have to figure out and you have to figure out what God wants from your life.
And not try to control everything, but just sort of, our job is to follow the Torah, and then He'll guide us where we need to be.
You do it according to the Torah, you'll be okay.
Exactly. Beautiful. Rabbi, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you talking with us.
Appreciate it myself.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting Torch so they can continue to spread Torah wisdom to the world by making a donation at torchweb.org and clicking Donate in the top right corner of the page. And if you would like to get in contact with our host with comments, suggestions for future topics of learning, or questions for him or his guest rabbis, you may email him at president@torchweb.org.